Welcome back to Neuroconvergent Leadership, where we talk about effective leadership and communication, especially in the STEM workplace or wherever neurodivergent people are, which is just about everywhere. This is one more solo episode. I know I've been doing a lot lately. There are some great interviews that are going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks, but I wanted to do one more solo. I am in the process of editing my book, and it is a long, arduous process. We went through one round of edits, which were going chapter by chapter, and we finished that, which was very exciting. Then we got to the second round of edits, which is going through the whole thing at once. And when we've been going through, there were some parts that didn't seem to quite fit. They didn't go with any of the chapters. And when we realized that we looked at all the things that didn't quite fit, the thing they had in common was that they were actually about public speaking. Most of the book is about interpersonal communication. These tips all had to do with public speaking, and so it ended up being its own chapter. And public speaking can mean a lot of things. It doesn't have to be getting up on a big stage. It can just be talking to a group of people, whether you're presenting to clients or your team or, a couple of divisions within your company. They may seem different, and there are differences. How you interact and how you present doesn't feel the same, for sure. Presenting is more like theater, and interpersonal communication is a conversation. Depending on the size of the group that you're talking to, if it's a larger group, it can feel like you're talking to a group. If you're talking to a smaller group, it feels like you're talking with a group. And a big difference is that people are rarely scared of interpersonal communication, but very many people are afraid of public speaking. There are a lot of ways in which they're the same. And the biggest thing is focusing on your audience, whether the audience is one person or a whole room full of people or an auditorium. You have to focus on them because it's not about you. It's about them and what value can you bring to that person. So you need to understand what are their goals, and you need to understand what are the ways that they take in information in a way that makes sense to them. If you ever read Good to Great by Tom Collins, there's a great thing that he talks about called the mirror and the window. And he says that great leaders, when something goes right, they look out the window and they look at how great a job everyone else did. When I feel that communication has gone well, I look out the window and I say, look at what those people were able to get from what I said and be able to use it. It's wonderful. And when in that book, if something goes wrong, then the leader would look in the mirror and they'd say, what did I do that made this go poorly? And I think that people should do the same thing in communication. If the other person doesn't understand what you're saying and they just don't get it, there's a very good chance that it has to do more with the way you presented it than their inability to understand. So knowing someone's goals is the first one. I recently gave a presentation at a American Public Works Association meeting, APWA, and they're unique because they're an association made up of many different types of members. There are people who work for the government, there are engineering firms, there are contractors. And when they're working on projects, they have to have all of these different groups, including citizens, come together and work together and be on the same page. So in the talk, I stressed about the need to understand the goals of the other person. Once you can understand everyone's goals, then you can align your goals so that you can all be pulling in the same direction. What was funny, though, was before I could do that talk, I had to figure out what their goals were, what the people in the audience. And so anytime I'm talking to a group, I like to find out what are the goals of the audience. Sometimes it's just to be entertained. Some people want to get better at their job. Some people have a specific problem that they're trying to solve. Some people are there for continuing education credits, all of which are fine. But what most people are going to be there for will change the information I deliver and how I deliver it. The other big part is understanding how they process. One question is, will they want a lot of interaction? Some groups really do. I've been to places where even though I told them, please hold your questions to the end, they basically said, no, we're going to keep talking throughout the entire presentation. And they did. And then there are some times when I will be asking questions that should be so easy because they are definitely things that people know and are thinking about, and they just refuse to interact. So understanding what type they're going to be is helpful. And then there should still be some interaction. You just may change the way you do it. So rather than saying, can anybody give me an example of, that can put people on the spot. But if you just ask people to raise your hand, does anyone feel, and you raise your hand, that's a pretty easy task, and they're still being engaged. There are also a lot of new tools that are out. There are things where you can have them work on an app and enter a word, and then the screen behind the presenter will have a map of all the different words and how important they are depending on how many times they've been written. So there are all sorts of tools. It doesn't have to be pulling teeth and forcing people to talk to you. It can just be a way to get them to raise their hand or write in responses. But interaction's helpful. How much detail does a person want or a group want? There are some people, when I'm talking to them, I want to just give them the big picture and they keep asking me for details. And I know there are other people who will give all the details that I just don't necessarily want. Knowing what is in your audience is useful. Knowing what is happening with the person that you're talking to individually is very useful. When it's an individual, you can get a better sense of it as you're going. With a group, you're probably going to have to talk to both groups. So you're going to have to let them know, I'm going to cover this at a high level, and then I'm going to go into detail. If people know both things are going to happen, they're more likely to be okay with it. When you're talking, should you appeal more to their logic or to their emotion? It's a pretty big difference when you're talking to people of what they prioritize. When you're talking to an individual, you can find that out. When you're talking to a group, you probably, again, have to cover both topics because there are going to be some of each in the audience. And are they visual learners? Are they auditory learners? They like to hear the words. Do they need written words? There are all sorts of different ways that people learn. I've been writing a lot of articles recently. A common theme has been that the more ways you can deliver information, the better it's going to be for everybody. If you can give it written, verbal, or recorded, visual, as much as you can give is going to be helpful individually or in groups. So how do you get the information that you need? The two seem very different, whether it's interpersonal or public speaking, because the way you get the information changes. If it's interpersonal, you probably know the person. You either work with them or you're friends or family with them. Plus, as you're talking, it's a two-way communication, so you're getting continual feedback and you can make adjustments. You can ask questions, they can ask questions. Presenting, you're less likely to know everyone, and there's less ongoing feedback. So I make it a point to ask questions ahead of time. If you're presenting to a large group, find out, get a little bit about what type of person there is and how they're likely to receive information, and find out what the goals of the group are. Are there any particular challenges that have been affecting that group lately that, if you can address, would be helpful? And then pay attention and check in. It's hard to do on Zoom because not everyone has their camera on, but in person, if you're in front of an audience, you can see when they, lean in, when they cheer, when they laugh, when they look mad, whatever it is. Hopefully they don't look mad. But asking little questions like, does that make sense, everybody? Does anyone have any questions? Are you ready for me to move on? So even though public speaking and interpersonal communication seem very different, there are a lot of ways in which they're the same. The number one thing is always focus on the other person or people. It's not about you. It's about what they're going to get from what you say. What are their goals? How do they like to communicate? If you can focus on those things, whether it's interpersonal communication or public speaking, it's going to go a long way towards making it effective. Thanks so much for being with us today. If you are interested in learning more about interpersonal communication or public speaking, reach out to me. Honestly, I don't teach classes on public speaking, but I know people who do. So if you're interested in one, the other, or both, reach out, and whether it's me or somebody else, I'll get you connected so that you can become the best communicator individually and in a group as possible. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.